In a heavily guarded room in the Tower of London, behind thick glass and unblinking cameras, sits a single diamond. It is not the largest in the world, nor even the most brilliant. And yet, it may be the most fought-over object on the face of the earth. Emperors have killed for it. Kings have been blinded and tortured for it. It has been ripped from the hands of a child, carried across continents, in the saddlebags of conquerors, and set at the very heart of an empire's crown. 4 nations claim it as their own to this day, and the country that holds it refuses to let it go. And according to a legend whispered for centuries, it carries a curse that any man who wears it will lose everything, while it brings no harm to a woman. Its name is the Koh-i-Noor, the Mountain of Light. And the story of this one stone is, in truth, the story of India itself, of its wealth, its glory, its conquest, and its plunder, compressed into a single glittering fragment of carbon. So where did it come from? How did it soak up so much blood on its long journey? And why, of all the treasures ever taken from India, is this the one the world cannot stop arguing about? To begin, we have to travel to a place that was, for 2,000 years, the only source of diamonds on Earth. Long before diamonds were found in Africa, or Brazil, or anywhere else, there was only one place in the entire world where they could be dug from the ground, and that was India. In the kingdom of Golconda, in the south, along the banks of a river, lay a network of legendary mines. For centuries, these mines produced almost every great diamond known to history. And from one of them, at a date so ancient no one can name it, came an extraordinary stone. In its uncut form, it was said to be enormous, a rough mountain of light indeed. We do not know who first pulled it from the earth or when. Its earliest history is lost in legend. One tradition holds that it once served as the glittering eye of a temple idol, a goddess, set into her statue by devoted worshippers, watching over the faithful for generations before greed and war tore it away. Whatever its true beginning, by the time it enters the firm light of history, the diamond is already a prize of kings, passing from the rulers of the south into the hands of the sultans who had come to rule the north. To understand why this stone mattered so much, you have to understand what India was to the world of gems. For most of recorded history, this land held a near-total monopoly on diamonds. The mines of Golconda became a byword for unimaginable wealth, a name that echoed through the courts of Europe and Asia alike. Merchants traveled for months across deserts and seas, simply to trade there. Almost every one of the world's legendary early diamonds, the great stones that would one day sparkle in the crowns and treasuries of distant nations, was born from this single region of southern India. To possess a Golconda diamond was to hold a piece of the most exclusive treasure on earth, and to possess the greatest of them all was to hold something beyond price. An object that did not merely display wealth, but conferred a kind of destiny, a claim to rule. This is why kings did not simply value the great diamond. They believed, on some level, that to hold it was to be chosen, to be marked out as the rightful master of India itself. For the medieval history of India was, in part, a long story of conquest from the northwest, of new dynasties sweeping down through the mountain passes to rule the fabulous riches of the plains. And whoever ruled took the treasures of those they conquered. The great diamond passed through the treasuries of the Delhi Sultanate, a prize of the powerful. And then, in the 16th century, it came into the possession of the dynasty that would raise Indian splendor to its absolute peak, the Mughals. Here at last, the stone found a setting worthy of its legend. The Mughal emperors were among the richest men who had ever lived, and their court blazed with a magnificence that stunned every visitor. And the most magnificent object in that court was the Peacock Throne, a seat of solid gold encrusted with thousands of gems that took years and a fortune to build. Into this dazzling throne, among all its rubies and emeralds and pearls, the great diamond was set. One jewel among a constellation of treasure, at the very heart of the wealthiest empire on earth. The value placed on such a stone almost defies belief. There is a famous remark, recorded in the memoirs of the first Mughal emperor, about a great diamond that may have been this very one, claiming that its worth was so vast it could pay for the entire world's expenses for days on end. Whether or not the figure is literal, it captures how these rulers saw the jewel, not as decoration, but as a concentrated drop of pure, world-shaking wealth, small enough to close in a fist, valuable enough to fund a war. For a century, it sat there, in the palaces of Delhi and Agra, a symbol of a glory that seemed like it could never end. But glory, as this channel knows well, always ends. The blow came in the year 1739, and it came, as so often, from the northwest. A ferocious conqueror named Nadir Shah, who had seized the throne of Persia, invaded India, shattered the weakening Mughal army, and marched into Delhi. What followed was one of the most catastrophic sackings in the history of the city. His soldiers slaughtered tens of thousands, and for weeks they stripped the imperial capital of its accumulated wealth, centuries of treasure carried away on the backs of elephants and camels. Nadir Shah took the fabled Peacock Throne itself, and he took the great diamond. There is a legend about that moment, and whether it is true or not, it is too perfect to leave untold. It is said that Nadir Shah, when he finally beheld the magnificent stone, was so overcome by its beauty that he cried out a single phrase, Koh-i-Noor, meaning mountain of light. And so, the legend says, the diamond received the name it still carries today. The Persian conqueror carried his prize home in triumph, but the curse, if curse there was, did not spare him. Within a few years, Nadir Shah descended into cruelty and paranoia, and was murdered by his own officers, hacked down in his tent. The mountain of light had claimed another master. From the wreckage of Nadir Shah's empire, the diamond passed into the hands of one of his commanders who founded a new kingdom in Afghanistan. And there, for a time, it stayed, amid the ceaseless intrigues and betrayals of the Afghan court. Its owners were deposed, exiled, imprisoned, and worse. One Afghan ruler, driven from his throne, is said to have endured horrific torture at the hands of those trying to force him to give up the stone, a story that only deepened the diamond's dark reputation. At last, a fugitive Afghan king, seeking shelter and protection, crossed into the land of the one man in the region, powerful enough to help him, the ruler of a rising kingdom in the northwest of India. His name was Ranjit, and he was known as the Lion of Punjab. Ranjit Singh was a remarkable figure, a one-eyed warrior king, who had forged the scattered warriors of the Punjab into a single, formidable kingdom, powerful enough to hold back all comers. He gave the desperate Afghan king his protection, and in return he obtained the Koh-i-Noor. The Lion of Punjab treasured the diamond above all his possessions. He wore it on his arm, displayed it on great occasions, and made it the very symbol of his kingdom's power and independence. Under his strong hand, the stone finally rested, for a few decades, in the hands of an Indian ruler who cherished it as the pride of his realm. But Ranjit Singh had built his kingdom around his own towering personality, and when he died, that kingdom began to crumble, just as a new and utterly different kind of power was rising across the subcontinent, a power that had come at first only to trade. By the middle of the 19th century, the British East India Company had transformed itself from a trading concern into the master of most of India, ruling through a mixture of alliances, armies, and annexations. After Ranjit Singh's death, his kingdom of Punjab dissolved into chaos and infighting, and after 2 hard-fought wars, the British finally annexed it outright. And in the treaty that formalized their conquest, the victors inserted a specific clause. The Koh-i-Noor was to be surrendered to the Queen of England, but the one who was forced to hand it over was not a defeated general or a scheming minister. He was a boy. The last ruler of the Sikh kingdom was a child of only a few years old, Duleep Singh, the young son of the great Ranjit Singh. Separated from his mother in the custody of the very power that had taken his throne, this small boy was made to give up the treasure of his dynasty. And so the mountain of light, which had passed through the hands of Mughal emperors and Persian conquerors and Afghan kings, was taken from a child and sent by ship to England to be presented to Queen Victoria. Its arrival in Britain was at first a strange disappointment. When the diamond was put on public display before enormous crowds, many were underwhelmed. In its old Indian cutting, designed to preserve the stone's great size rather than to maximize its sparkle, it looked to Victorian eyes accustomed to the fiery brilliance of modern gems, dull and lifeless. And so a fateful decision was made. The Queen's husband, Prince Albert, ordered the diamond to be recut. The finest cutters were brought in, and over many weeks they ground the ancient stone down, sacrificing nearly half of its weight to transform it into a smaller, more dazzling, modern, brilliant. In doing so, they made it sparkle as never before, but they also, in a sense, destroyed the historic stone that had crossed centuries and continents, reshaping the mountain of light into a European jewel. And here, the old legend of the curse found its final and most careful expression. Mindful of the diamond's dark reputation among men, the British royal family placed it only in the crowns of its queens. It was set into the crown of one queen, then another, and finally into the crown made for the Queen Mother in the 20th century, where it remains to this day, kept in the Tower of London, among the crown jewels, worn only by women, as if the curse were still being quietly obeyed. It is worth pausing here on that curse, because when you lay out the diamond's journey, the pattern is genuinely unsettling. Consider the trail of its male owners. The Mughal dynasty that treasured it was toppled and humiliated, its capital burned. Nadir Shah, who seized it, was butchered by his own men. The Afghan rulers who held it were deposed, blinded, and tortured, one after another, in a cascade of ruin. Ranjit Singh held it, and within a decade of his death, his mighty kingdom had utterly collapsed and vanished from the map. And Duleep Singh, the last Indian owner, spent his life as an exile far from home, dying broken and estranged in a Paris hotel. Again and again, the men who possessed the mountain of light rose to the summit of power, and then were cast down into catastrophe. Whether this is the work of some genuine curse, or simply the natural fate of anyone rich and powerful enough to own the most coveted object in the world, a target for every rival and every conqueror, is a question you may answer for yourself. But it is easy to see why, when the diamond reached Britain, no king was ever willing to wear it. And so we arrive at the strange unresolved present. The Koh-i-Noor sits in London, one of the most famous objects on Earth, gazed at by millions of tourists a year. But it has never stopped being a source of conflict. India asks for it back, arguing that it was taken by conquest from a child under a coerced treaty. But India is not alone. Pakistan claims it, for the Punjab where it last resided is now divided between the two nations. Afghanistan claims it, tracing its path through the Afghan kings. Even Iran has a historical claim through Nadir Shah. 4 nations, each pointing to a different chapter in the diamond's blood-soaked journey, each with a genuine thread of history in their hands. And Britain holds it still, unwilling to open a door that once opened might empty every museum in the world of the treasures of empire. The Mountain of Light has become something more than a diamond. It has become a symbol of a far larger question, about conquest and ownership, about what was taken and what, if anything, can ever truly be returned. So consider, at the last, the strange journey of this single stone, pulled from the only diamond mines the ancient world knew, set in the eye of a goddess, and then in the throne of emperors, carried off by a Persian who named it and was murdered for it, fought over in the courts of Afghanistan, treasured by the Lion of Punjab, and finally taken from the hand of a lonely child and shipped across the sea to be recut for a foreign crown. Every ruler who held it believed it was theirs, a symbol of their power and their permanence. And every one of them, in the end, lost it. Perhaps that is the truest meaning of the curse. Not that the diamond destroys the men who wear it, but that it outlives them all, indifferent, eternal, passing from hand to grasping hand across the centuries, while empire after empire rises, reaches for it, and falls. The Mountain of Light shines on, behind its glass, in a foreign city, still waiting, perhaps, for its next chapter to begin. If you would like to keep traveling with us through the forgotten corners of the human past, stay a while longer and let the next story begin.